be there today. I've got to stay home. I've got some things I have to do and then a doctor's appointment. So I want to go ahead and take a few moments and go over the quiz that the sub has handed back to you guys so that we can have a little bit of feedback on what's going on. So we'll start with the first page. Most people did really, really well on this first section. A few people, I think, just read the problem wrong, if anything. What quadrant is quadrant F in? Well, here's F right here. That's in our quadrant. 1, 2, 3, 4, so it's D. Okay. The ordered pair A corresponds to, so here's order, it's 1 over 2 up, so it's again another D. Okay, and then we're looking what has positive y coordinates. So this is quadrant 1 and quadrant 2 have positive y coordinates. So A is in there, but F is not. F is below. A is in there, but B and B is, so that's the right answer. This is our best answer, is B. Okay, so if we're talking positive F quadrant, X coordinates, you'd look at it 1 and 4. Those would be our quadrants. So we talk about any of those pairs. Okay, so the next one on these next little bit, I'm going to type the answers to these just because they're easier to read that way. Okay, so if we start with this, the key to these is, remember, when I'm listing an ordered pair, I start by putting it in these brackets, and I put them in order from least to greatest. -3, 1, 0, and finally 5. Close them up. Several people, that's what the mistake they made. They didn't put them in the order. They didn't put them in the brackets, and that got theirs. The range was a little more challenging because you're going to have to, again, put them in the brackets, but you have to go ahead and put them in the correct order because it's always least to greatest. So it's -4, -2. Then we go and look at -1, 1, and 3. Those are my ordered pairs. And then, is this a function? The answer is no. Okay. No. Didn't need to shout that. There you go. Is no, because we've got 2 y's. You have 2 x's that are the same. We have an x, well, 1 here and a 1 here. Okay. Anytime we have less than the same amount of bios in y as we do in D in the domain, then we have an issue. So our mapping is the next thing we do. I think we'll start writing it. So again, this, I don't care what order you wrote it in. So you could write it -3, 1, 0, and 5. And then, but the key is mapping them to the correct pair. So 3 goes to -3, so you'd have a line there. 1 would go to both 1 and -4, so you should have a line from 1 to both of those terms. 0 goes to -2, and 5 goes to -1, so you'd have a line like this. Yours could be in any order as long as you map them that the lines are connected to each one. I don't care if you put them in least to greatest order or anything, just as long as you have the connections in the written piece. So coming down to the next part, I'm going to make this font just a little smaller so I can fit it in space, and we're going to do the same domain and range here. Okay, so just like on number 4, these are discrete functions, so we're going to go ahead and put them in order from least to greatest, and we're talking x. So we say -1, 1, 2, and 4 are my answers for that one. Okay. When I'm talking range, we're doing from least to greatest again. So we're starting at -2, 1, and finally 3 are my 3 numbers there. Okay. Is this a function? Yes. It doesn't have any repeated y values. If I go ahead and graph it and I put my vertical line test on all of these, I can test it and go, okay, you're right. Doesn't ever repeat here and here. There's no other dots on those lines. It's a vertical. It is considered a function. All right, let's take a look at the next one. So again, same brackets. This time -3, 0, and 4. And that's our, oops, wrong bracket. There we go. Now we're talking about the y value, so we're going to say it's -1, 0, sorry, -1, -5, 0, 1, and 7 are our y values, and this is not a function because we see that we have 2 y values that are the same. We have the same -3 here in x. Sorry, 2 x values are the same, so those are not. Okay, and finally our last answer. We take a look at same brackets. This one I think is the easiest and most commonly, I don't think many people have a problem. 3, 6, 9, and 12. They're already in order from least to greatest. Makes it pretty easy. Then we go down and go, the next one is 5, 7, 9, and 10. So there's our answers for that. We look over here and go, okay, is it a function? No, it's not a function. Because we have now this time, just like up here, we have the same pretty much very similar answer as it is in up here on number 4 and 5. This has 2 lines coming off it. That makes it not a function. It's very similar to that setup right there. All right, now to the next page. This, numbers 9 and 10 are the most commonly missed problems by far. So again, here's the key to this. We're looking at the limits. What's the very outer edge? What's the farthest it can go any direction? So if we start going from left to right, we're doing our domain. That's left to right. Okay, the first thing we see is an arrow. The last thing you see is an arrow. So anytime like that, we talked about how arrow last unit was infinity to infinity. We said we renamed it this time to all real numbers. And again, you guys could use the shortcut or you could write it out, okay? Now the range on this one does have a difference. This is from the bottom to the top, okay? And this time we have arrows going down, but we have a limit on the top. The limit here says nothing above. So here we're going to say this one is y is less than or equal to not negative 3, positive 3. Let me fix that real fast. Not negative 3, positive 3. Because every answer is below 3. And is it a function? Well, yes, it is. Okay, now we take a look at the same one. This time we're going again from left to right. You'll see we start with left to right with arrows, but we have a limit this time on our x-axis. So all the answers are less than or equal. That's not less than. Less than or equal to positive 1. So I was going to flip it around and put positive 1. That's the farthest it goes to the right. And this time the range is all real numbers because again it goes from arrow to arrow. Got one going both directions. And then you can say, no, this is not a function. It fails the vertical line test in a myriad of places. Okay, so from here, the next piece to do, and this is where I caught some people here and there, we know we have to show our work. So I wanted you to show y is equal to negative 1 minus 3, and you put negative 4. You've got y is equal to 1 minus 3, and you say, okay, 1 minus 3 is negative 2. Okay, from here you got 3 minus 3, that's 0, and 5 minus 3 is 2. I think most people that I took points off was either we made a calculation mistake or we didn't put the work. So again, now we're going to graph at negative 1, negative 4. Puts our first one right here. Then we go 1, negative 2, 1 over, negative 2 down. It's right here. 3 over 0. It's right here. And finally 5 over 2 up. That's what my line should look like. Okay. The last one's a little more challenging, but not crazy tricky. 3 minus 1/2 times negative 2. Okay, so negative 1 times negative 2 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So 3 plus 1 is 4. That's my first one. 3 minus 1/2 of 0. Well, that's 3. 3 minus 1/2 of 2. Half of 2 is 1. So 3 minus 2 is 3 minus 1 is 2. There we go. And finally, my next one, 3 minus half of 4. Half of 4 is 2, so 3 minus 2 is 1. So again, we've got 4. This time we've got negative 2, 4. 0, 3. 2, 2. And finally, 4, 1. You can see again, we've got that straight line. So we know we've got the right answer. The last one, this is just you guys working it out. And again, this one didn't require any work because you can do the thing. Now you've got a shortcut we talked about with 13 and 15. We know that the way they're all set up for you to get whole numbers, you've got to have multiples of 3 here and multiples of 2 for this one. So that's a pretty good guess for my x-axis how to think. So the only ones that have multiples of 2 is A. Let's test to see if that works. Half of 2, 2 minus 5. That's 1, that's negative 4. Half of 6 is 3. 3 minus 5 is negative 2. Okay, so definitely this is A. Okay, next one, 4x. We'll check that one in a second. Let's get this one so we know A has been used. Come down here. Well, the only one that has multiples of 3 is this one. So 2/3 of 3 is 2. Negative 2. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. So definitely B is the right answer for this one. Coming over to 14, and now we've got 2 left, so we've used these 2. All right, well, let's test the math. 1 times 4 plus 3 is 7, so far so good. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 3 is 15, so this is C. That leaves this one to be D. Okay, you can just go through process of elimination. By far, this was the biggest issue we're having, so a lot of you, that's going to be the smorgasbord I recommend you guys do today, is to work on that one. All right, so let's talk about, here is the vocabulary. A couple ones that I saw that were tricky. The second number in an ordered pair. Okay, guys, we're talking about the Y value. Okay. Another one I saw that was tricky for a lot of you was number 5. L. It's a set of ordered pairs. It's not an ordered pair, but a relation, because that's the definition for relation. Okay. But overall, just take a few seconds and look at that. Make sure you're looking for the key. If you have any questions, feel free to ask when I see you. You can come for a help session on Thursday or Friday, and I'd be happy to help you with those. All right, now that we've kind of reviewed the quiz that you've taken, the next thing our substitute is going to give back is your feedback on your paragraphs. In there, I've written feedback. I've given you information on each individual one. Those of you that might have gotten lower scores, I went ahead and just stapled a copy of the correct answer, the key on there for you, so you could kind of look it over. You will have one of those on the test. And I'm not telling you what it looks like. I'm not going to tell you if it's a function or not or whatever, but you're going to have to be able to write that in complete sentences. A lot of people that I'm seeing missing didn't do the domain and range correctly because it was continuous graph. It's going to have, all real numbers, or y or x is greater, or have those limits of we talked about. Okay, so a lot of you guys have to look into that idea. It's not a discrete graph. You're not going to be made up of points. Okay, now here are your options for Smorgasbord. You've got 3 choices today. I really didn't see many issues with 0 of a function, and I really didn't see a lot of issues with plugging in x's and y's, short of maybe just forgetting to show your work. So the 3 areas where I saw the biggest need, and that's the ones I pulled, one was function notation, so lesson 4. Okay, and these have a little bit of fun here, because if you come down to, like, say, number 7, it says f times g sub 1. So the first thing you do is put 1 into the g function. Then you're going to put the result of that, whatever answer you get, into the f function, or the g function, or vice versa. So as you work it through, you put it in here, then you're going to put it in here. Whatever you get as a result, it's going to go in there, and you're going to kind of work that through. So that's the kind of piece. And you had a couple like that, okay? And the answer key for this is on for the Smorgasbord for this is on my GAC. You can look it up. Your next option are task cards for lesson 5. Now, I wasn't here to check lesson 5 with you. I've left the answer key for you to look at with them. But if you're having trouble with that as you work through it, if you're struggling, this gives you different choices. You can see they're all very similar, but it has different function things. Find the common difference. That's pretty easy. Create the simplified equation. And then you've got different numbers. So it's not like 25 and that it's 7 or 15 and 12. And it works your way all the way through. So it just gives you 12 of those. It has a table. Another way you could see an arithmetic sequence is a table. Okay? So kind of keep that in the back of your head. You've got these, and this is like our real life word problems we were talking about on the last 2 on your homework and notes. You got 4 of those. So you've got options, and this is what you're going to do. You're going to show me the answer here. You're going to plug in the equation that I'm going to assume. You're going to type it into your calculator. There's your common difference. There's your simplified equation. There's your final answer. So you only need to show those pieces a little bit. Okay, and your last choice, and this is probably the most commonly picked one you're going to have to choose, is this one. Okay, this is the domain and range practice. Now, you can't do all of these. Well, you could do all of them, but I'm not going to ask you to do them all. It's 2 pages. There's 9 on this page. There's 12 on the next page. I only want you to do certain ones because it'll be ones that we're similar, we're used to. So we're going to do questions like number 1. We've seen these kinds. And number 2, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7. You're going to do those on this page. Okay, and then on the next page, you're going to come over and you'll do questions 3. You'll do questions 4. 5, you can see it's more of a you'll see it better on your page. It's a square. You can do 6. You can do 7. You can do 8. You can do 9, 12. And I want you to try 10. 10's a little trickier, but I think you can do it. It's kind of like a closed circle, as it doesn't have arrows, so it's very similar to a problem like number 5. If you're stuck on these, I recommend going back in and looking at your notes about how to write that range, like -5 to the signs, making sure you have your signs correct on those. Okay, so those really are your options for today. Your job today, and then of course you have your study guide to do. So the sub's gonna, if it hasn't, it's gonna hand out your study guide. Everyone needs to work on that. I don't care if you do that first or second, and then you need to go pick one smorgasbord. Okay, I've left instructions with a sub that if you're getting rowdy or you're talking too much, or you're not doing your work, she can assign you a second smorgasbord. She's gonna write your name down on the paper, and then for you to get full credit, you're gonna have to show me that second smorgasbord. She's gonna put your name on my paper. So incentive to make sure we're working hard and not being off task and distracted is to go ahead and just keep going. If you finish early, you can study your vocab. You can even work on something for another teacher once you're finished with all my work. I don't have an issue with that. But if you get distracted, the sub has the right to give you a second smorgasbord to work on. I have plenty of copies. Okay, so, and if you're stuck and run out of copies, please just print another one off my GAC. All right, if you guys have questions, you can always send me a quick email. I won't have time to check much during the day, but I'll look at it that evening. Okay? All right.